What do you guys think of that little video? I'm going to show you how to make that on your mobile device, because this is another video in my series on how to edit using your mobile device on Powerdirector. If you haven't been to my channel before, I'm Eddie from Eddie Studios, and I do weekly videos with tips and tricks to help you be a better videographer. And part of being a better videographer and filmmaker is to be able to edit your stuff. So I think the first and best way to start editing is using your phone, because you can edit super fast, on the go, and it's really inexpensive, if not free. If you haven't seen any of my other videos on Powerdirector, please watch the playlist above and get familiar with the basics of Powerdirector before you come to this video, and then we'll get into this. So what I did here was a split screen effect, and I did the split screen effect to make myself cloned. And I made some mistakes in there, but I do want to touch base real quick before we hop into the phone on what you should do when you're shooting a video for something like a clone effect. There's a lot of fun stuff you can do with this effect. We're going to do the cloning one here, but it kind of translates over to some of those other like things you could use it to actually make money on, like a product video. First, I want to start by saying, if you're going to do a cloning video, you have to make sure a couple of things: that you can split the screen next to one of the clones without the other clone passing over the invisible line that is where the screen's going to be split. If one of your clones or one of the versions of you passes over that line, it's going to look terrible, and it's impossible to really do in Powerdirector without cutting an arm off or something like that. So you need to make sure that you plan it out with a wide enough point of view that you can fit both clones in there and not have them actually touch each other, because it won't work out in Powerdirector. It doesn't have the abilities to mask in that manner. Think about how you're filming it. Make sure that nothing gets moved on one side of the stage or the other side of the stage by one clone or the other, because it's going to be hard to hide that, and I'll show you where I screwed up on that in mine. All right, I'm going to stop rambling here and we'll get right into the phone. But stick around until the end, because I want to make sure that you guys see how I add all the different sound effects to give that video the full comedic aspect that it deserves. Because without sound, you're missing half your video. All right, let's get right into it. All right, guys, we are in Powerdirector, and I have everything already loaded in here. And this is actually kind of what the complete project looked like, minus the words. And I'll tell you why I put the words in there in just a minute. 3 layers of audio, because I did want some sound effects in there, as well as my music. Got my color boards to do different effects. And then I've got my 2 layers of my videos that I shot. So I shot 2 videos, one of me in each position doing the different things. And then what you're going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and revert this back to the beginning with just the video layers in there. So let's do that now. I got my first clip in here, and I do want to start it where I know I'm going to start it. So I do want to make this trim before I go ahead and even add my next one. We'll go ahead and trim it somewhere in here. Let's go trim, take away anything before that. So I'm just going to delete that out. And then at the end also, I get up and I go and I shut everything off. So maybe we'll leave the laptop shutting because he's mad at his twin. So go ahead and split that and go ahead and delete the rest. Okay, let's pull the other clip in. And on this one, we're going to add it to a layer. So go ahead to the layers tab, grab the video, and mine's under my Mimo, because I did shoot all of this on my DJI Osmo Pocket 2. Another thing you do want to note when you're shooting these is that you want to make sure you lock all your exposure. So lock your exposure. Do not forget to do that, because if your exposure changes, it's going to really mess everything up. So I do want to go ahead and make sure that I have this. So I do want a couple steps before he gets there. So we're going to cut it right before he comes in. And go ahead and split that, delete the first part. I'm going to move this over to match up. And then we will go ahead. So I think the reason I had trimmed it farther than this before is because he starts to get up. And what I could do, I'm still going to trim it here. I'm just going to drag to trim. So you can do the drag to trim. We're going to bring it to the end. And then I'm just going to see what I can add to the beginning of this here. So we'll give it a little bit of time here at the beginning. So this is going to be a little longer than our other one. That's the problem with dragging to trim, is you sometimes wind up dragging it too far and it pushes it at the end to make it longer. So, all right, so we have our full clip here. So what I want to do is I do want to make this the full size of the screen. So go ahead and drag it out so that it matches the size of the screen. You got that. And then your next step, which is the crucial step, is go ahead and mask this. So we're going to go into our masking, and I'm going to choose a rectangle mask. I believe you can use the linear, but I think the linear does not allow you to rotate it. So I just use the rectangle mask for this. And what I'm going to do, because I am going to soften my edges at one point, is I'm going to make it taller than the image. So I'm going to pull it up some, and then I'm going to pull it down some. And then I'm going to make it taller than the image. And I'm actually, instead of dragging in from a side, I'm just going to move it, the whole mask, over to where I want this clipped. And my problem that I wound up ending up with here is my cushion that my second clone sits on winds up moving, and it just creates like this blur. So I'm going to go ahead and play through it like it is. And you can see the dark line on the mask there. And that's what you don't want. So what you do want to do is soften your mask a little bit. And this softening is why I made the mask bigger height-wise than my screen and bigger width-wise on the right-hand side, so that it doesn't soften inward from the right. Because if you soften a rectangle mask, it's going to soften all of the sides of the rectangle. So you do want to make sure, and you only need to soften it just a little bit. And then best thing is to just click out of the mask to see what your lines look like. So my lines look a lot better now, but what I notice here, see when my couch cushion moves in the bottom, right in the bottom there, see how my couch cushion leaves that weird blur? And a lot of people might not notice this while you're showing them your video, but this is actually why I added the words in there, was to hide that little blur. If you're doing this, shoot it in a way where you're not going to move something that may be overlapping the two images. I do want to also add, if you want to color grade this, wait until you export. So export it, then bring it back in a separate project and go ahead and do your color corrections there, so that you're not messing with color on two different images and having to kind of like correct them together. You can color grade it as a whole, which makes it a lot better. I added a vignette before, so that's one of my color boards is a vignette. So we go ahead to photo, color board, black, add that. I'm going to add another one underneath it just because I know that I'm going to do a fade out. And so we'll go here. We're going to do our vignette one, which I showed you how to do in one of my other videos, and you guys can check that out in the previous playlist. But we'll go ahead and get it into it a little bit here. So you pull it as big as the image, add the circular mask in there, or invert it, soften it a little. I like to make my masks smaller for these. Smaller, get some real dark edge in there, and then come out. Go ahead and soften it slightly more, come back out, bring the opacity down, and we got a little bit of vignette in there. Next, take the other color board. We're going to move it to the end because we want to fade to black at the end. I just like fading to black in a video like this, those little comedic aspect to the video. So we'll go ahead. I'm going to shorten this color board up because we don't need it as long. And full height and size of the image. We're going to go to opacity, keyframe at the beginning, and a keyframe where it's at 0. I did it backwards. We'll go ahead and use these keyframes though. So 0 here, 100 at the end. All right. So slow fade to black. This is where we're going to add music, sound effects. So if you do have the free version of Powerdirector, which like I said before in my previous video, just pay for it. It's only $35 for a full year, and you can get so much out of this app. But if you have the free version, it allows you to watch ads to utilize some of their like stock stuff. So you can go into music, and the typical music you get on the free version is this more music. And I don't know if you even get the Shutterstock one, because the Shutterstock was added recently, and I'm not sure if it was added for people using the free version with like an ad, but originally you get these sounds. So this is what you have to choose from if you're trying to do music. Now, sound clips, All these sound clips and sound effects are also on the free version. Some of them you may have to watch an ad to use them, and that's fine. Do that. Watch the ad, use it. Like I said, I used the free version for a while before I decided to pay for it, but I'm happy that I paid for it because I don't have to mess with any of that anymore. Let's go. Yeah, that might have been what I used. Either way, we'll use it. So when I use audio, though, I like to use the end of it more than the beginning so that it actually fades out when the actual video fades out. I personally prefer it to fade out well versus starting at like the perfect spot. So let's keep moving this over. Because I can fade in, but it really sounds good when a music actually like hits their last chords in your video. To me, that's my personal opinion. I'm just going to go to the end and see how the end sounds because the beginning I'm not super. That's actually pretty perfect. So, and I will shorten this. We can let it go a little bit after the end of the video, but let's shorten that up. And we'll just do a fade in, and that way we know the beginning sounds okay. Then you want to add sound effects. So I got a guy typing here, so we want to find keyboard sound effects or typing. So go back to music, go back to sound clips, keyboard. I know I had male laughter in there. Let's go ahead and add the male laughter now, though. This is the one I used. All right, so we'll go ahead and add that in now. I use the pen click for when he uses the TV remote. So we'll go pen click for the TV remote. When he clicks the TV remote, we want to click there. We want keyboard. Keyboard. So there's a bunch of different keyboard ones. This is the one I had used. What else we got? I had laughter, keyboard, footsteps. Footsteps. These are ones I used. All right, so we got all of our stuff. These are all of the sound clips that I used before in my last one. I'm going to make the video a little smaller so I can mess with the stuff down here. So footsteps were in the beginning. We'll go ahead and bring that back there. Let's turn down the music, audio. That sounds good. All right, we know this. We know the laughter doesn't go there, so I'm going to move it to the end where it does go. I'm going to move the remote click to where it looks like he clicks the remote. Yep, that looks good. Sounds good. Sounds decent. I say decent because it does sound decent. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. I'm going to bring one up here to this line because he's already typing right here. Let's go. Oh, he's typing in the beginning. Let's move it all the way back to the beginning. Let's make that pin click a little bit louder because I didn't hear it at all in there. Let's cut this keyboard typing so that we do hear the pin clip. We're going to split it and just move some more. Oops, back that up. Move this one over some. And you can play with these sound effects and add as many as you want. So then when I added the words in there just to hide that little blur spot, you guys know how to add text. I showed you that in a previous video. I think this about wraps it up. What'd you guys think? I think you can do it. I think you can be creative with it, and I want to hear about how your journey on doing the split screen effect and the journey through the rest of Powerdirector. If you've watched any of my other videos, if you're using any of my tips or tricks that I've showed along this journey, tell me about it. I want to hear about it. So leave a comment, but like always, if you like this video, throw me a like down there, and if you want to see more stuff like this or other filmmaking tips and tricks, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification so you actually hear when the new videos drop. But I'm going to move on because I wanted to make this short and sweet. I'll see you guys next week. Check out the top video over here. It's going to be my last video that I uploaded, and the bottom is going to be that playlist of the rest of the Powerdirector stuff. So check those out. And like always, I'm going to keep grinding here at Eddie Studios. Peace, guys. See ya next week.